Now, if you weren't scared before, you should be scared now.
The analogy that I think of is the expression about shooting fish in a barrel. YouTube is the barrel and the content creators are the fish. There will be consequences for content creators. We have a variety of tools at our disposal to cull through those 23 million channels and in an expeditious way. So when we talk about aggressiveness, we are typically talking about civil penalties. Not only can we sue Google and YouTube for compliance with COPPA, but also individual channel owners and content creators. The
Hey guys, it is Drea from Dreamy App Games, and I'm sure by now, whether you are a content creator for YouTube or just an avid YouTube viewer, you've heard about the new Child Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, that is going into effect come January 2020, which is just a few months away. Now, I've been looking at YouTube videos on this topic and looking at Facebook and all of the comments on Twitter, and people are very concerned, and rightfully so. I mean, it sounds like this law is pretty not only far-reaching, but maybe just a little bit overreaching, and a lot of people are worried because they're talking about demonetization. They're talking about hefty fines of $43,000 or more for every video that is not compliant with COPPA. I mean, there's just a lot of things going on. So let's talk about it just a little bit. Now, COPPA itself, a lot of people are only hearing about this law now, but it's actually 21 years old. Now, this may be hard to believe, but the internet is actually not as old as people think. People think it's been around forever. But really, when you think about it, personal computers started to come into homes around the 1980s. It wasn't until 1990 that the World Wide Web came into existence. And in fact, in 1990, the first ever web page was created. Then, maybe about 8 years later, right around 1997, 1998, every home in America and then around the world pretty much had access to the World Wide Web in some way or form, and more websites were popping up everywhere. And that's when we started to learn that, hey, you know what? There might be a little bit concerns about what's going on in the World Wide Web. There are some risks out there that we're seeing, and we got to worry about the kids. And so a Democrat senator actually came up with COPPA, and then it was signed into law by then President Bill Clinton. And the original act actually is nothing objectionable. I mean, this was something that needed to be done to protect kids. And to me, what the law used to be still kind of needs to be done. I mean, there needs to be some way to protect kids when they're on the internet, because there's only so much that parental supervision can do. So there have to be some safeguards. The original bill was to protect kids from data collecting, like forcing them to give out their birth dates, addresses, and other personal information. Basically, the act was to protect children from predators and predatory sites. Well, in 2013, the law was revised, and that's where we get a lot of this extending the reach to maybe being a little bit overreaching. And the law is also kind of a little bit ambiguous, but in the end, it was signed into law by then President Barack Obama. Now, this newly revised version of the law, like I said, is far more ambiguously written, with very little clarity, and it now imposes a fine of over $43,000 for each video that is in violation. And the reason we're only hearing about this now is because YouTube was fined by the FTC, who enforces this law, over $170 million for tracking information in order to personalize ads aimed at kids. Now, they do this for all of us, but under COPPA, they said you cannot do this for kids because it's considered data collecting. The only difference is the way the data is collected in order to create these personalized ads is not the same way that COPPA was originally trying to prevent data collection. With the settlement, YouTube also agreed to make changes based on the revised COPPA law to their site. And these changes are going to affect everyone, and much of it in a negative way. And that even includes the very children they're trying to protect. So let's discuss how this is going to hurt more than it's going to help. At this time, YouTube is giving content creators a chance to turn their channels to either made for kids or not made for kids. That means if you have like a site that's dedicated to kids content, like cartoons or nursery rhymes or little arts and crafts projects, then you would mark yourself made for kids. But if you have content like video game reviews and you review a lot of games that are T for teen or higher or M for mature, or you got animation that's supposed to be goofy, kind of like Family Guy, well, then you would mark yourself not made for kids. Simple, right? I mean, come on. That's not that hard. I mean, we could do that easy, right? Not exactly. For one, the FTC and YouTube stated that to make sure channels are COPPA compliant, they're going to be using a learning software program that goes off algorithms to find inappropriate material that is improperly labeled. That means if you labeled something as made for kids, but it's really not, like maybe it's PG-13, well, then you got a problem. Or if you say, I don't want this headache. I don't need kids looking at my channel. My stuff is aimed mostly at adults anyway, so I'm just going to say no kids allowed. But then they find content that actually could be aimed towards kids, you're in trouble. And that could be $43,000 worth of trouble per violation. So that is one issue. Now, both the FTC and YouTube have admitted that this particular software currently recognizes animated content as kid-related. So I guess the software never heard of Family Guy, South Park, Robot Chicken. But if it finds animated content, it's going to automatically deem it to be made for kids. Now, we as content creators rightfully mark it as not made for kids to protect kids from viewing adult-oriented material, like something with bad words or grown-up jokes. But if the software deems it kid-friendly solely based on the fact that it's an animation, the content creator could be in trouble and receive a fine of $43,000 per violation. So that's one big issue. The software program cannot distinguish between Mickey Mouse and a violent Japanese horror game, because to the software program, it's all animation, and all animation is kid-friendly. This is also going to affect video game content, since most video games are animated and not live action. And this is also going to affect anything where kid-related items are used, like do-it-yourself videos. A lot of them are aimed at adults. Like maybe it's, hey mom, hey dad, here's a project you can do that you can create for your kid. Maybe you create your kid something like a playroom or a play set, and this is how you do it. This is how you build it. Now, it's aimed at the parents, but they could say, well, it's kid-friendly, so you have to mark it as kid-friendly. And I also see on Twitter a lot of people are really concerned about something called AMSR. I don't know what that is. I had to look it up, and I guess it has something to do with people who feel stress relief, or they have their anxiety reduced. And some people even look at it as a fetish, I guess, where, when they hear whispered voices or tapping of the fingers in a certain pattern and other quiet sounds, they get this tingling sensation in their brains that kind of give them a very calming feeling. And a lot of these videos, I guess, according to what I've been reading, use kid-related items such as Play-Doh, silly putty, slime. So a lot of this content is not made for kids, but it can be caught by this software solely because it's animated or has kid items in the video. They could flag it as inappropriately mislabeled, and the content creator could face a $43,000 fine per video per violation. Now, the creator took necessary steps to say, hey, I said we are not for kids, but the software says they are because of what's used in their video that it recognizes as kids content. Now, are we seeing any of the issues so far? Well, here's even more issues. This is going to greatly affect monetized videos. Now, a lot of people have learned how to monetize their YouTube videos, and this ends up being a really big source of income for them. And some people, well, they make this their literal job. Now, anybody that has kid-friendly content or anything that can be considered kid-friendly content are going to be demonetized for a time, up to a month, possibly more, while YouTube implements their new policies. On kid-friendly content, all commenting is going to be disabled, as will sharing content, and there will be no more personalized ads. And those sponsored ads is where most monetized channels get the base of their income. And YouTube has acknowledged this is going to be a big loss of revenue for those channels. Another issue is that it's actually going to hurt the very kids we're trying to help. A lot of kid-friendly channels have have already said they're going to be pulling their content from YouTube and closing their channels down. The thought of hefty fines and trying to figure out what is kid-friendly based on what they want to be kid-friendly and what's not kid-friendly is just, it's really hard based on the ambiguous wording in the law. And then they're worried about losing the monetization, having the channels so drastically changed where you remove all the commenting and the sponsored ads. They feel like it's no longer worth spending all that time creating content and no longer worth, just sticking around because they're not going to receive any compensation for it. So what does that mean for kids? How does that hurt kids? Well, let's face it. Parents who let kids use YouTube unsupervised now are not going to stop. But when kid-friendly content leaves YouTube, that leaves, well, less kid-friendly content. And since they can no longer personalize ads to look at what you search for the most on the internet and make sure you're only seeing ads that are based on your interests, they will now use contextualized ads. Now, those ads are just spots that are bought and paid for by sponsors that randomly pop up whenever a commercial needs to pop up, just kind of like on TV. So now your kids can be exposed to ads for alcohol, Viagra, condoms, tampons, or ads that may contain sexual innuendos, like all of those ads you see on Facebook for Lily's Garden. I don't know if you've ever heard of that game. It's like a soap opera. But parents who let kids on YouTube without supervision already, like I said, are not going to stop. So those kids are now going to be exposed to more objectionable content thanks to this law rather than less. So in the end, it's going to hurt creators. It's going to hurt kids that the law is trying to protect. It's going to hurt sponsors. It's a lose-lose-lose situation. And to be perfectly honest, none of this is even necessary. COPPA in its earliest forms did exactly what it needed to do to protect kids from predators online and from predatory sites and to keep them from accessing their location, their birth dates, and from communicating with them. And in that form, it still is necessary because there are still a lot of dangers for kids on the internet and they should be protected to a certain point. However, the law was never meant to protect kids from videos that contain swearing or adult situations that weren't even aimed at them in the first place. That is a parent's job. Now, if you look at the YouTube terms of service, it states, by using this site, you are agreeing that you are over the age of 18, an emancipated minor, or have the expressed and legal permission of a parent or guardian. This site is not intended for children under 13, and if you're under 13, well, there are other great sites out there for you. AKA, get lost, kid, you bother me. Well, either way, if you use this site, you are agreeing to the above, and the rest is your responsibility. As a content creator, it is not the channel's responsibility to parent, especially since there are hundreds of parenting styles and hundreds of variations of what a parent would deem inappropriate or offensive for their particular family. A content creator's only job is to make content that their target audience will enjoy and keep them coming back. When it comes to making sure that your kids are not watching something on YouTube that you don't want them watching because you don't think it's appropriate or you may find it offensive, that is the parent's job to make sure they're not watching those videos. It's the parent's job to supervise what their kid is doing online, to make sure that they have all the parental controls and the parental blocks up, and to make sure they talk to their kids about the content that they are watching. This law is removing parental responsibility. Look, guys, the iPad is not a babysitter. You should not give your child free rein to surf the web and then hold all of the websites responsible for their protection. At what point is it okay for us to say, if you have a child and you want to make sure they're safe online, either supervise them or don't let them go online? The sad thing about it is YouTube has an extension of their website called YouTube Kids, specifically made for youths under 18 or under 13 with kid-friendly, regulated content. But it's not being utilized by all the parents as it should if they have kids under 13 that they're worried about surfing on the regular YouTube. They're still giving their kids the access to the regular YouTube channel instead of using YouTube Kids, and then they want us to change the way we do things to protect kids who shouldn't be on the site in the first place. I guess what it comes down to for me is this. I completely agree that there need to be rules and regulations to protect kids from predators and predatory sites as necessary. But when it comes to protecting children from content such as YouTube videos that were never aimed at them in the first place, that's a parent's job. I started this channel not long ago because I was bored and everyone is doing Fortnite or Minecraft or reviewing zombie games for the Xbox One and whatever. And I decided that this niche gaming genre would be really cool to do because everybody has a smartphone or a tablet or an iPad that goes everywhere with them. So I review games that you can download for these systems like the iPad or a smartphone and let people know is the game really free like it says it is? Does it have in-app purchases? Are there like excessive amount of ads? ads? How is gameplay? I let parents know if kid-friendly games really are kid-friendly and what content they should be watching for, like if your kids can chat with other players online and if that chat capability can be disabled or not. So that's really just kind of all I really wanted to do. Now, I don't have any subscribers yet because I wanted to make as much content as I could before advertising the channel too much, so that the people who do finally come and find my channel will have a lot of content to look at to make subscribing worth sticking around while I'm working on other content. Now, with the threats of fines and being told that if I don't know how my video should be labeled, whether it's kid-friendly or not kid-friendly, I need to consult a lawyer. I mean, seriously, YouTube has this on a video. This is what they state. If you don't know whether you should label it kid-friendly or not kid-friendly, you should consult a lawyer to help you discuss the options and which content you think it should fall under. I mean, seriously? This was just supposed to be a fun sharing site to share your creativity and your content. It was a hobby, and now you need a lawyer to do it? Really? Because you could get a $43,000 fine if some kid who shouldn't even be on the website to begin with, if they're under the age of 13, falls upon a video that has a cuss word in it and the parent gets all upset about it? I mean, this is what it's come down to. So then I said, you know what? This is no longer just good, honest fun. And I'm thinking of not even bothering advertising and just pulling my content. I haven't decided yet because a lot of people are writing into the FTC to voice their concerns. And we're going to see what the FTC says. Because, you know, they say they're going to be listening to us on this. And so we'll see if they really are. And then I'll make my decision. But, you know, it's gotten to the point where I'm like, I put so much work into this. And I was so excited about doing this because I was having so much fun doing this. And now this pops up and it's like, ugh. Like I said, I agree we need to protect kids on the internet, but this is extreme. So is there a compromise? Well, more than one person has come up with this suggestion, and I think this is a pretty valid alternative. How about a better rating system similar to movies or television shows, like G for all audiences, PG for parental guidance suggested, PG-13 for older kids and up, or rated R, which means not intended for young audiences at all. That way, everyone is protected. Kids and parents are fully aware that they are watching a video that's either perfectly green, good for everybody, maybe has a few bad words in it and is meant for older kids, or just is totally inappropriate for children of any age. And content creators are protected because not only have they taken all the needed efforts to warn parents about the content of their site, but it also gets rid of that gray area of, well, yeah, my content creates, or has animation, but it's not intended for children consumption, it's adult animation. Or yeah, my content is tame and has no bad language, but I'm still more aiming it at parents rather than the kids. And it gives the added bonus of, if you have a site that is aimed at kids, you can let your viewers know what age. Like G, hey, all kids are welcome. PG-13, well, this might be for older kids, or PG, like, hey, this is good for all kids with parental guidance. So it kind of takes away that gray area, because right now it's all or nothing. You're either kid-friendly or you're not kid-friendly. This makes it so that you can say, hey, we're kid-friendly, but here are the ages that we are looking for. And so it just, like I said, gives a broader way for us to define our videos to make sure the appropriate audience is seeing them. That protects kids, that protects advertisers, and that protects video creators. Now, like I said, COPPA is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the revised version was very poorly written, unclear, too much gray area, and way overreaches, and puts the responsibility of parenting on the video creators rather where it should be, which is on the parents. And the biggest problem is it's going to hurt kids more because as kid-friendly content is pulled off the site, they're going to be exposed to more adult content and more adult-sponsored ads. So I think the movie rating system is a fair compromise. Now, what do you guys think? Leave it in the comment section below. Do you have concerns about COPPA that I didn't actually talk about in here? Or do you have other opinions on COPPA? Or, whatever. Just leave it in the comment section below and maybe I'll address it. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because just in case I do keep the channel, then like maybe if the COPPA thing is resolved or whatever, then at least you're already liked and subscribed and you can prepare for future content. Until next time, it's Drea from Dreamy App Games.